Hey, it's PJ Ignis from Archangel Self Defense. And this week at Archangel, we've been talking about lessons that I learned during my time in mixed martial arts. Now, mixed martial arts is, of course, a sport, and it's completely different from self defense in the real world. Um, but some of the toughest people you'll ever meet, of course, are mixed martial artists, and they have some of the best striking knowledge on the planet. In fact, they have a huge array of different weapons that they use. And I am going to teach you a couple very devastating strikes today. So, before we do this, I'm talking about elbow strikes. And with elbow strikes, it's actually been outlawed in some mixed martial arts organizations throughout the past because they produce huge cuts that stop fights. So we often talk about the knife point of the elbow. Well, the elbow is a very pointy tool, a very hard bone. In fact, the hardest surface that's used to strike in the body. If you haven't watched my video on blocking with the elbow, then I will link to it in the comments, and I suggest you take a look at that because that complements what we're going to talk about today very nicely. So just to reiterate what we talked about in that video just a tiny bit, we talked about covering up here with the elbow, hugging it tight to the head. I'm on the base of my neck, my hand's on the base of my neck and not further up on my head. And now I have here a strike or a block that is very good, especially for things like haymakers. So I'm going to block here. I can cover up with both, and then I can use my elbow in an upward fashion. I can step in when I'm being attacked in an upward fashion and aim for the attacker's jaw or aim for the attacker's nose. And then I can follow that up with another elbow strike, a knee strike. We're in very, very close, so we're not really in kicking range or even palm strike range. This is best used when you close the distance on your attacker. Now, closing the distance is, it can seem very counterintuitive, but it can actually protect me. If I'm within arm's reach, if I close the distance, then it takes away a lot of my attacker's tools, especially if I, grab their head in a head clinch. Now, the next one I want to teach you is what I call the slashing elbow. They call it diagonal elbow sometimes. The Muay Thai name for it really isn't important, but I am going to bring my elbow up. My elbow, if we were standing on a big clock, this would be facing 2 o'clock. I'm going to bring my elbow up, and I'm going to swing it like I would swing a baseball bat. So with my hips, I swing through and slice again at the nose. This can be used against the temple, against the mandible bone, the jaw, and it can be a very devastating strike. Now, I can use my elbows even shorter if I just want to flick up my shoulder. I can use my elbows in very tight, or one of my favorite things to teach is if someone is approaching you from behind or grabbing you from behind and your shoulders or your arms aren't pinned by your attacker, I can bring my elbow up in a very natural movement, hit behind me. I'm always looking behind me. I'm doing it on the other side, and I can use it to turn around. If our opponent or attacker in this case is behind us, my first goal is to always face my attack head on. So if they're behind me, I'm going to throw a quick elbow strike, and then I'm going to turn to face my attacker. But again, if I'm grabbed from behind and still have the use of my arms, if I'm attacked from behind, an elbow strike is a very devastating strike, and it would be dangerous to say that that's the only strike that's necessary, but it's a good strike to start off with. It may be the only strike necessary. It is a very devastating strike. You can deliver a lot of power, put a lot of body weight behind a short elbow strike. And again, there's a lot of force concentrated in a very small point of your elbow. So it is a very devastating strike. So hopefully now you have a new tool in your arsenal for self-defense. I want you to stay safe, and until next time, I'm PJ.